Hello and welcome to The Gist. I'm your host, Chris Vetrano, here to break down all the things happening in pop culture and interviewing the people that make it pop. Today, I have a very special guest who has flipped the music industry upside down with the release of her independent album, All I've Ever Known. She's already accomplished more without a label than most major label artists accomplish in their entire careers. Aside from her incredible voice and stage presence, she is also a businesswoman and a true artist of the people. Her new song, Leave the Light On, is featured in the new Twisters movie, and you can catch her on the road this fall with Jelly Roll. Please welcome to The Gist, Alexandra Kay.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Of course, I'm so happy that you're here. One of my best friends, Lewis, is your drummer. And we have gotten to see you live several times and we've gotten to know each other, and you are just like a bundle of joy, and you're on this like incredible rocket through the industry, as I just mentioned.
Thank you. That was a very flattering intro. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to use this for something. Just for my everyday pick me up. Like, you got this, girl. No, but thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Absolutely love Lewis. Love that we were able to connect between Lou and Emily, and have just loved getting to know you both over the last year, I guess, right?
Yeah.
We had some fun.
Yeah, I know. It's just been so incredible to hear your story and kind of everything that you've been through. I mean, your debut album came out last year, but you have been doing this for a long time. And, I know that you've been on a Netflix series. You've really been trying to make this happen, but it all started apparently in R&B, which I did not know.
Yeah.
And you've transitioned into country. So tell me a little bit about that backstory and then how you landed here.
Well, I've always just been the type of person where I just don't really take no for an answer. And I think that that's ultimately why I am where I am in my career. But even back then, there really wasn't a platform for country music in St. Louis, right? I mean, our person was Nelly, who was like waving that artist flag, being like, St. Louis, even though I'm from Southern Illinois, St. Louis is my closest big city. So, and no one really knows where Waterloo, Illinois is. So I always just, claim St. Louis.
Sure.
But I'm from Waterloo, Illinois. And so I was working at the Four Seasons Hotel as the hostess in the restaurant. And my dad worked there as well, so I spent a lot of time in downtown St. Louis, met a lot of people who were in the St. Louis area, and a lot of people who were artists as well, songwriters, rappers, that were in hip-hop. And so I just kind of saw this opportunity within this culture of music, which I loved and adored so much, to, kind of get my voice out there. And so the more rappers that I met, I was just like, hey, if you guys need any hooks, I'll do them for free, just call me.
Wow.
And so I just was I just kind of became the hook girl, and it was just like one rapper after the next. And then I ended up, getting introduced to Nelly and Huey, and working with a lot of really prominent rappers in St. Louis. And then that's how I signed my first record deal in 2012.
Yeah, that's amazing. And since then, you've had 2 record deals, right?
Yeah.
And so I imagine that, as you went into your debut album, you really, I know that, I mean, for folks that don't know this, being in Nashville, you're an it girl right now. And I know that there are labels that are very interested in knocking on your door, but you are saying no to a lot of them, which it was interesting that you said, I just never say no, because you actually are saying no to them because you have gotten the street smarts. You've learned kind of what you want, and by being in these 2 labels before. What is that kind of, tell me your sort of interpretation of where you're at from that side of things with the business.
Well, I think I've just learned so much from my past 2 record deals. I signed my first one in 2012, and I ended up leaving, I believe it was a year and a half, maybe 2 years later. That was an independent deal. It was very straightforward. And honestly, at that point in my life, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just like, somebody wants to help me, I'll take all the help I can get, Ended up not being a great fit, mostly just because of creative differences.
Right.
And I was really finding my way back into country and was still being produced as an R&B artist. And I was ready to kind of take that next step forward. I was also really, really itching to to start utilizing social media, which is funny because that's how I've made my independent career.
Yeah.
And I was kind of being told like, no, like don't worry about doing any of that because it was an unknown thing. Like artists weren't on there singing cover songs. Like that was kind of frowned upon if you were signed to a label. So anyways, we split in 2013, 2014, something like that. I put out a couple independent singles. Signed my second record deal in 2018 with Warner Brother Records. Ended up getting dropped less than a year later.
Yep.
And now that, the labels are coming back around and they do every year that I release something else and they see that the shows are just getting bigger and bigger and the fans are just, really connecting with the music. I take every single meeting. I sit down, I hear everybody out. But I think that I've just really, like you said, got the street smarts now and the business smarts. And what I think sets me apart from a lot of other artists as well is I love the music business. So like, some people are just like, no, take me out of that side. Like I love the music business. I would probably be in management or publishing or something if I wasn't the artist myself. So I think that's just kind of what drove me to gain the immense knowledge I have when it comes to negotiating a deal now. And now I just know my leverage. I know what the labels are looking for and I know what I bring to the table and I know what that's worth when it comes to negotiating a deal. And so I'm just not going to settle. And so when the right opportunity comes along and they can give me what I think is going to take me to that next level, then we'll definitely do that and bring on the right partner.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you said social media because now social media, especially in the music industry, like drives everything. Like a lot of labels won't give, budgets for music videos or to promote the singles or even take it to radio unless it's like on the TikTok charts or unless it's like going viral in some way.
Which is so ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like you mastered that and you had your finger on the pulse early on to know that like that's one, how you're going to connect with fans. And two, it's how you're going to get your voice, even if it's not your music, if you're doing cover songs, it's how you're putting yourself out there. Yeah. And you have your finger on this pulse that right now, I feel like a lot of these social media, like quote stars, a lot of the people that created a song in their bedroom and went viral on TikTok are getting labels because they're a lot like you were maybe back in the hotel where you were like, I don't know. I just want someone to help me.
Yes.
And so they're bringing on all these labels, but the labels honestly don't know what to do with them beyond a lot of what they've already sort of established. And they don't know what to do. And you are in this boat where you really do know what to do.
Well, I definitely don't know everything. And there's definitely a lot of knowledge I can still acquire, and I'm looking forward to that because I just feel like I'm such a sponge when it comes to this business, and it's ever changing, right? Like it's just, especially with social media, it's like what's going to be the next thing. I feel like every other day, Nick is my social media guy, and who you've met, but every day Nick's coming to me being like, "There's another platform. Here's what we," you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm like, "Oh my God!" It's just changing constantly. But I do pride myself in feeling like I've mapped a new road for indie artists. And you know what's funny? And I just want to touch on this really quick because you were just talking about how the labels are really putting a lot of they are considering going viral on TikTok a marketing plan. Yeah. It's like that ain't it, right?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. Lots of songs were successful #1 songs, billion stream songs without being viral, right?
Yeah.
Like people were selling hundreds of thousands, millions of records without being viral. Like that's not a marketing plan. And I think when it comes to me, I have never actually had a viral sound on TikTok, which is surprising to a lot of people because of my streaming.
Right.
But what's considered a viral sound is like 50,000 uses with your song.
Right.
And I don't have the kind of music that people make videos with,
right? Yeah.
Right? My stuff you kind of consume alone. and you're like inner reflecting.
Right.
But still have songs without ever being playlisted. I still have over 200 million streams, but I've never had a viral and, sell 2,000 cap rooms out headlining, and I've never had a viral sound. So it's just crazy to me.
It's why you, as an independent artist, you are kind of the new label. Like, you're doing it all yourself, because like you're saying, like the industry is sort of overemphasizing social media and TikTok and virality and all of these things that ultimately, like you said, that's not why people signed to labels back in the day. Like, you look at, a Britney Spears or, or even like a Shania Twain, like when you're looking at these massive, massive artists who have diamond records, and they did it because you always kind of hear this word, the machine. And that was when the label was the machine. Like they took you through it. They put you through this like boot camp. They did a marketing campaign that was much more than just like, hey, do something clever on social media or come up with a dance and be the next Charlie XCX. Like, those things also go away. I was just chatting with Maggie Rose on a recent episode.
She's wonderful.
Yeah, she's amazing. And we were talking about like even some of the other people that have become viral on social, like the Hawk Tuah girl. Like, it's like, but that's going to come and go. And if you don't have the right people around you, it's going to, like, you're not going to be set up for the future.
100%.
I think that you saying like that you don't have a viral song on these social platforms, but you have the following. People are following you. They're showing up at your shows. They're listening to your music. That's what you actually want as an artist, not to be the next viral thing, because you're not even listening to the song.
100%. And it's like, okay, so think about like the big playlists, right, that dictate your monthly listener number, which I just made a tweet about this the other day. But I was like, the way that this industry puts so much pressure on a monthly listener number, but it's completely dictated by backstage in the music business.
Yeah.
And it's not legit. And people in the music business are putting, how am I trying to say this? Like they're relying on that number to make their artists look like super buzzworthy. Right. But if you pull the curtain back and you have 2 million monthly listeners and you can't sell 300 tickets with your name on it,
there's something.
What are we talking about?
Yeah.
It's the same. It's kind of like, it's like, if you get added to Hot Country, right? Which I have never had a song on Hot Country. The biggest playlist I've ever been added to was New Boots, and that was Ever Leave. That was the first time I ever got added to a playlist. So I have 200 million streams without ever being playlisted. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you have someone can get one song on Hot Country and get 50 million streams on their song like that. Now, cool. That's all fine and dandy for your bank account, because we all know what you're making, especially if you own everything, which 90% of the artists that are out there don't own everything. They've sold it away. Me personally, I own my publishing and I own everything. Yeah. So my checks probably look a little different than theirs, because when you sign these deals, you sign away everything. 80% usually. Yeah. And then your publishing is split 50-50 or maybe worse than that. Yeah. So really, those are the people that are complaining about the streaming revenue not really kind of being a drop in the bucket, right? Yeah. But if you own everything and you get 50 million streams on a song, that revenue is actually pretty substantial. And so when I go back to Hot Country, if I were to get a song added to Hot Country, which would be super cool, Hot Country, if you're listening, would love that. But no, if you get a song added to Hot Country and your monthly listeners shoot, guess what's going to happen when you get pulled off of that playlist? They're just going to drop. Yeah. And guess what? No one who's flipping through Hot Country has any idea who they're listening to.
Right.
Because if you flip through currently right now, and this is just my opinion, and it might be a little controversial.
Give it to me.
But I can't tell the difference between 5 of other artists on Hot Country and Morgan Wallen. No idea.
Yeah.
There are 5 other artists on Hot Country right now. If I just flip through, I think every one of them is Morgan.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another sort of quote marketing plan that the labels have right now, is like everybody's sounding the same. Nothing like has any kind of real authenticity anymore, because it's truly just like, how do you get as most out of this artist as fast out of this artist? And then like you kind of get, unfortunately, left for dead a lot of times. And, it's like I mean, I don't know all of the ins and outs, but I imagine that like you weren't at Warner long because they probably didn't invest enough in you. They probably didn't like put you in the right place to actually see what you are capable of. And then if you weren't performing at a certain level, they just didn't do anything because they were on to what was actually like bringing in money for them. And that's like, they're not willing to put in what they want out of kind of these deals and these artists and stuff. And so
that's sad.
Yeah. Totally.
And that's sad because, you
end up missing out on a lot of really good talent that way too.
I mean, look what happened to Chaperone.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually,
she literally got dropped from her label. Also, like, she is my favorite artist right now. Yeah. Like, I am completely obsessed with the record. I listen to it every single day all the way down. Like, I am back in my Jonas Brothers phase, but with Chaperone. I'm like such a stan.
Amazing.
And but anyways, the fact that she got dropped, it's like, what a fumble. Who, you know what I'm saying? Who fumbled that? Well, she is like a one of those once in a lifetime artists. Yeah. She's like Madonna, or she's like Lady Gaga. Like, she's just right outside the box enough.
Yeah.
And then the music, and then you listen to the way that she's telling the stories, but unlike anybody else has ever told the story, it's just incredible. Who fumbled that? Yeah. That's crazy.
And we're having a bit of that kind of, it's the summer of the girls, the like, in the kind of the independent, but like the comeback girls or something, like
the pop girls the pop girlies are taking over.
They are. I mean, because another one is like Sabrina. Everyone's like on fire for Sabrina Carpenter, and Espresso's like this massive hit. And then Please, Please, Please came out, went number 1. Like, she has had these 2 back to back, but this, like, people think that she's about to release her debut record. And she's like, I think had, I don't know, 4 or 5 records. Like, she has been doing this for so long, and people just didn't know. And she's changed labels and she's changed teams. And it's like, yeah, you guys just didn't know what to do with her. And doesn't that make you guys feel a certain kind of way, that you missed
100.
The Espresso, you missed the song of the summer, and even I said Charlie earlier being kind of like the dance craze, but like, Charlie has been in the game forever. And now she's really kind of like having her first sort of mainstream success because of virality and because of like various things. But it's interesting to just see kind of all of these people. And I think Akesha is another story where, you see how she had her own struggles with the labels and a very different story. But now Joyride, her new single, I just read, is like, it's outperforming like her last 2 full records. When you put all of her streams of her records together, this single, which is hers, it's completely independent, she's now actually going to start making some money, because if she keeps delivering songs like this, because I think people are ready for it. So
amazing.
Yeah.
And that's another thing is like, I think a lot of people like to blame everyone but the record label on the reason why they're not making money. Yeah. But a lot of the reason why your money is so abysmal is because that was a bad deal. Yeah. You didn't sign a good deal. And so like, when it comes to independent artists and like me, but I do a lot of speaking and like conferences, and I spoke at South by Southwest this year. Yeah. And I do a lot of just kind of like outreach to independents and just kind of tell my story and try to just, provide some support.
Yeah.
And share my knowledge. And yeah, that's a major thing, because I feel like we were brought up, especially as females, in this business, in the country music business. It was like, there just were none of us. Mm-hmm. Especially like you had the 90s girls, and then it just like slowly went downhill. Yeah. And like, that's what I grew up on. was, Faith Hill, Martina McBride, Jody Messina, Sarah Evans, Leanne Rimes. And so like that was the representation of what I could be when I was young and growing up. And like, that's why I am who I am. Right. Yeah. It's really crazy that I call Jody Messina a friend now because she literally is the reason why I do this.
Yeah.
Wow. And so like, I love to talk to artists about all the steps they can be taking in order to put themselves in the best position possible when they are approached by a label.
Yeah.
Because now I'm able to say, well, that doesn't make any sense because I'm bringing you XYZ. I'm bringing you this many tickets sold per year, this much revenue in merch per year, this much this. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then I just leave until they come back with what does make sense. Yeah. And that's
because they can get you on a playlist and get a viral hit.
And the thing is it's like, yeah, but getting me on a playlist, but you're taking 80% of my revenue isn't going to do me any good.
Yeah.
So
totally.
It's just kind of about thinking about it. And right now, independent artists have the best opportunity possible.
And you have so many of the things figured out. Like, I mean, you have this connection to your fans because, in preparation for this, I asked your fans like to send in some questions. And like, there are so many questions and some of them are very personal questions. Like people want your advice about their own lives and you have impacted people's lives in such a big way. Obviously, the theme of your sort of first record around a divorce that you went through, that is really resonating with people. And it makes them want to share their story. I mean, there are people in my DMs that have like been like, can you share this story with AK, like of my divorce? Like, and just like, it's so personal. And you're like, wow, you just shared that with me because of her. And like, that's something that a lot of these other artists don't have. You have figured out how to connect to the fan base. You have figured out how to be viral, have the followers. You have figured out how to, without playlists, get your music heard and listened to. Right. And those are all the things that make you your own label. Like that is really, aside from going to radio, which, country is really the only one left that like that really, really matters. But it doesn't even. And now you're, going on this massive tour and, this is the exposure that potentially launches you even further, that
we hope
you don't even necessarily need to bring in a label to put you on the playlist and take, a percentage of what you have earned.
Right. And there are some of those things that can be learned and some of those things that are just being a human or just being who you are. And I really have just been a people person my whole life and I'm extremely empathetic and I just have always described myself as I overfeel things to where, I remember just like feeling like I was crazy when I was younger because it was just, I was so emotional. It was like when somebody would feel like if somebody just like as an example, but like if somebody was like sitting alone at lunch, like I can't sit there and watch them sit alone at lunch because I am sick to my stomach. Tears are welling up in my eyes. I just feel people. I don't know why. I just have always, I'm like, I have to go over there. I have to be you know what I mean? Like same with like when people eat alone, like old, like when old people, no, I literally have to switch sides with Rocco because I'm like crying. And he's like, they might just want to be out to lunch by themselves today. And I'm like, no, you know what I mean? Like I just am extremely attached to people and I just feel people's emotions. So I also want to give them a relief of sorts. Yeah. And so really when I was going through my divorce, I was writing through it, it was extremely healing for me, but I kept other people in mind the entire time. I was writing, I was like, I'm writing this about my experience, but like, what does somebody who's going through what I'm going through right now, what do they need to hear right now? And what's going to make them feel less alone in their situation?
Yeah. Which is what makes you a great songwriter and why people are like resonating with it. And, it's, I had, I don't know if you know Dagny, she's like a pop. I mean, she's great. I love
Yeah.
her, but she's from Norway, and she has not had her moment yet in the US, but I feel like it's coming. It has to, because her stuff is so good. And I mean, Katy Perry like ripped it off and whatever, but I had her on and we were talking about it, because I was like, English isn't even her first language. So it's like, how do you write these incredible pop songs? And like, a pop song doesn't always have to make sense, but it's like she walked me through this process that's very similar, where it's like she feels a lot of things, like, and that is probably one of the traits of like a really good songwriter, of like, I feel really emotional. And when I started, writing maybe not my best stuff, I was always writing about my own experiences, and like I couldn't go sit down to write something unless I was like, well, have I lived that? And then I started realizing I had all these emotions about other people, and I could start writing about another person's story, and write like this incredible song that isn't even like maybe personal to me as much, but I know it's going to relate to other people because I felt something about it. And that is like what you're kind of doing. You're putting all of those emotions into your music.
For sure. I think it all changed whenever I heard Taylor Swift's first record, I believe. I think it was like 2006. And I just remember going through a breakup or a hard time with a boyfriend or something during that time, and was just like, how does she know exactly how it went down? And it's because she adds in all of these like pretty specific but also kind of vague, like little nuance scenarios that make you go, oh my God, that's how it went down with me. Like, how does she know? This is literally identical. This is my song. And then you grasp onto it. It was like the first time I heard All Too Well, like before it like went viral, like later, and she re-recorded it and everything. It was always my favorite song. My favorite song.
Yeah.
Like in general, if anybody would say, what is your favorite song? All Too Well by Taylor Swift always was. And I think it was just because it was so specific and so close to what I went through. And yet she has no idea who I am or what I went through.
Right.
But I was able to feel her experience within mine. And that's when I realized, listening to that first record and then becoming just like a stan all the way through to now. Still, I love her.
Yeah.
That's the emotion I wanted to pull out of people. I wanted people to feel how I felt the first time that I realized that I'm a fan of her and that I'm going to support whatever she does.
Yeah. So speaking of your first record and all of these kind of emotions that went into it, like how would you describe it in like 3 words?
My album?
Yeah.
Truthful, devastating, uplifting. It's like all of It's like all of them, right?
Yeah.
I'm just telling the truth. I've never been shaken like that in my life.
Yeah.
In my life. It was the greatest loss of my life. And it altered my brain. It altered my nervous system. I've just never felt grief like that before. And, I was completely stripped down to figure out who I actually am, because I'm such a giver and I'm such a lot of my personality and just who I am. I'm a chameleon of sorts, like I always have been. Which has gotten me into trouble early in my life, but I've always just kind of become the people I'm around to best serve what I think they need from me. I'm just a servant. Yeah. It's just who I am. And so I did that in our relationship, just serve. And then when that person you're serving goes away after 11 years, and you're left with who you actually are at your core, it's very scary.
Yeah.
It was a very naked, stripped down feeling. And I was like, wow, I have to now internalize all of this alone, when I've never done anything alone, by the way. And I did a lot of it through therapy and, living by myself for the first time at 30 years old.
Wow.
Like, that's wild.
Yeah.
You
had a lot
going
of like
from a small town to a city. Yeah. I mean, it was like everything which is why I named the album All I've Ever Known. Everything I have ever known got taken away from me in a year.
Wow.
Gone.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, but then at the end of it, I really found out who I was, and like I love myself more now than I ever have.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of had to go through it. It's interesting. Well, one of your fans, Olivia, she had wanted you to describe the album in one word, and I was like, I I think that's too hard because I was anticipating that there would be, some sadder words which you used, like devastating, like, there's but to also have uplifting, because there is an uplifting message to the album, which is on the other side of all of this. It's all
Yeah,
you've ever known, but now it's like who you are. And
right.
you know that. And one of the other questions, I got a lot of these questions, so I'm not going to name check because there was a ton of people that asked about your self confidence and being so comfortable with yourself. And I wonder, like, especially hearing how kind of like broken it sounds like you were during that experience, you were still working on music and still trying to like make all of these things happen. So where did sort of that self-confidence and that strength come from?
I mean, you get to a point when you lose everything, um, where you don't have a choice but to just get back up.
Yeah.
And um, I didn't have a choice. I love my career and I love music probably more than anything. And um, it is always how I've gotten through everything, is writing about it. And it's how I fell into songwriting. So that was extremely natural for me. But when it comes to um, just being sure of myself, I was very unsure of myself for a while. I questioned every decision I made,
Mm-hmm.
because a decision that I had just made had me feeling worse than I had ever felt in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So it really kind of altered my brain to think I couldn't make decisions on my own, which also is another just kind of like, because I've been a servant to somebody for so long, I'm used to making decisions for other people, not for
Mm-hmm.
myself. So, yeah, it was really, really hard. And I still struggle with that as well. But, just kind of going and, to counseling and realizing that, a lot of my issues were very deep rooted, from my childhood, or, how
Mm-hmm.
we all go in there and we, get in touch with our inner child and we go, oh my gosh, I had no idea these two were connected.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I think that just figuring that out, I also discovered that I have OCD,
Mm.
when I went to therapy as well. So, just becoming a happier, healthier version of myself,
Yeah.
and, realizing that I am capable of so many more things than I ever thought I was. And I think that honestly, when you just come out of something so devastating, I just really feel bulletproof
Yeah.
now. I'm
That's
like,
amazing.
there's nothing that could ever hurt me as bad as that did. And I'm smiling, happy, successful, in love
Mm-hmm.
with Rocco, my
Yeah.
boyfriend, like, with the best friends and a whole new life. And I came out on the other side. Like, how bad could it be?
Right.
Like anything else in life, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's also like, it sounds like now you also have the tools so that if something bad happens, if you, we never anticipate the worst to happen, right? But if something were to happen, you, it sounds like you've also built sort of this roadmap for how to get through it, like going to therapy, putting your emotions into songs, like really just kind of like creating that bulletproof armor that you now have. And maybe you let less of that emotion out at times, but at some point in your life there may be some vulnerability, or there may be things, obviously a lot of the social media and being, a star also comes with some not so great parts. There's a lot of online bullies and things that can say horrible things. And,
Oh yeah, I
you've
get
got
that
to
all the
have
time.
thick skin, and
Right.
you've built all of that through the experiences that you went through. And so it sounds like maybe to your fans, like you would say therapy for sure. It sounds like if you're needing it, seek it, because there's so much to be learned. And
Yeah.
then, the other thing is probably just like start to really grow a thick skin and look inward on what you believe to be true about yourself rather than what other people are putting out there.
Well, right. And I think that I can say that a lot about the comments, like reading bad comments, because I get them all the time. Right. And that's just a part of having the reach that I have. And I tell artists that all the time. Yeah. Like if it's just your grandma and your mom and your dad watching your videos, they're going to say you're incredible. Yeah. But it's really when you start to get some big reach and the haters come in, you're like, oh, cool. This is really doing something. Yeah. But that's how I kind of look at it. But also another thing is I always tell people, like, don't be afraid to feel it, though. Like, I just let myself, and I let myself feel it whenever I get, like, a bunch of hate comments that maybe I'm like, okay, that sucks. But why does it suck to hear that? Yeah. Because what wound is that already tapping on, right? Yeah. And so maybe it was like I have lately, like, when it comes to summertime and like my allergies get really, really bad, my voice gets really raspy, like very quickly. Right. And so it's like, if somebody makes a comment about my voice, well, why did that hurt me? Oh, it's because I'm already self-conscious because I'm really raspy. Okay. Just talk through on why it's hitting the nerve. Because if somebody were to tell you, you have,
oh, I get it. I get it.
5 children, that we would be like, no, I don't.
Right.
Like, yeah. It's not true.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've really gotten through that a lot by just like looking in and being like, okay, what nerve is that hitting? And then just feel it and let it go.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, I mean, I remember, and by the way, the raspiness is like a good thing, because I saw you in Knoxville, I think. And I remember after the show, you were like, oh, sorry. Like you were apologizing because you're like, oh, my voice and the allergens. And then I was like, no, I loved it. And I thought it was great. So
but see, that's my self-conscious. I'm like, oh my God, I instantly have to tell them, I'm so sorry. I don't usually sound this bad.
And it wasn't bad.
But that's the thing though, is that people will say, where do you get your confidence from? And it's just like, we're all struggling with our self-confidence and the imposter syndrome. And I was sitting in the Women of Country room at the Opry the other night, and I was like looking around, and I did not feel like, I just feel like sometimes I like snuck in the back door, like nobody knows I'm here. But we all deal with that. We all deal with that, and I struggle with it every day. But I just try to look at myself in the mirror and be like, you worked really hard for everything that you have. And yeah.
Well, you definitely are deserving of that. And that actually brings us Kenzie. She wanted to know what's the most exciting thing from this last year, because so much has happened for you. The Grand Ole Opry, Twister soundtrack, and then obviously the Jelly Roll tour. What do you kind of find as your sort of like biggest thing of the year?
Can I give two?
Sure.
Okay, so my most I don't know why it always does the balloons when I put the peace sign up. So the two biggest and most exciting things that have happened this year was, one, the Jelly Roll tour, which I'm leaving tomorrow. So like, how exciting to get to play arenas as an independent artist. I have this incredible opening video. I can't wait for you to see it, that like shows a little bit of my journey through being an independent artist and just really waving that flag before my set starts. And I just really feel like that's going to really touch a lot of people and inspire a lot of people. Yeah. So that is the most exciting on my career front. But in my personal life, the most exciting is just being with my boyfriend, Rocco, and being loved properly. And just so purely loved. It's been life-changing. I really thought I knew what love was until I met him, and until
you opened yourself up to that.
This. Yeah. Because it's completely different. I feel safe. I feel cared for, taken care of. I just feel he's my best friend. It's just like, I just feel like this year I really found like really true, pure love, and we get to tour, the world together. Yeah, and that's amazing. Yeah. So those are the two most exciting things that have happened this past year, for sure.
Love that. And actually that brings another question. Brooklyn said, does it feel weird to sing about the divorce, given how vulnerable the album is, and be vulnerable on stage right in front of Rocco, which she refers to as your new man?
So you would think that it would, but honestly, Rocco co-wrote 3 songs on the record.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Rocco was my friend through it all.
Yeah.
So, honestly, no, not at all. It's he's extremely supportive and was as my friend through it all. I mean, like everybody watched me go through it. Lewis, John, Rocco, like my band is like my family, and we spent so much time together through those very beginning months of the split, and when I was just in tears 24/7. And so I think that the way that Rocco was able to kind of be a friend and a confidant during those times and watch me really go through it is how he was able to co-write this so nicely with me. And it was very genuine. And he came up with the line, "Daddy says we don't do divorces," in Painted and Perfect. Because I had said in front of him that when I told my dad that I was getting ready to go through a divorce, he was like, "We don't do divorces in this family." So like, no, not at all. He's super supportive. He's so excited to hear the way you guys scream the songs back every single night, and he's really, really happy to be a part of it. So no, not weird. I think if I continued to write about it, that might get a little weird.
Yeah,
We weren't together when I wrote the songs, and he knows that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you too, like, now that you are in this different phase of being in love, you have really connected, as we talked about, with so many people about their divorce and the loss and the grief and the way in which your family feels about those things. I mean, you really touched on so many things in this album. Where do you go from here musically? And are we going to get like a happy Alexandra Kay like album, or like how are you going?
Probably not. Because let's be honest, Alexandra Kay didn't write happy songs ever. No, but there are a couple of those like really light and airy songs. But I am who I am as an artist and as a writer. And like honestly, when I got back into the studio, I'm actually really glad you asked this question, because it was a struggle for me. And I haven't talked about this in any interviews, but it was a struggle for me because I'm extremely in tune with what my audience wants. And I read all the comments, and I felt a little bit of pressure because everybody was like, "Can't wait for the happy record, can't wait for the happy music." And so then I was going in and I was trying to write like happy windows down kind of songs. Right. And like they were so cheesy and they were not good, to be completely honest. And I was just not myself. And I had a conversation with Beth one day, and she was just like, strip out what everybody is saying they want from you and like go in and just be Alexandra Kay. Like just hear the music and see what comes out. Like and we did, and we've written some of my favorite songs I've ever written for this next album. Very upbeat, but with that underlying tone of like fire and turmoil, and you know what I mean? Because that's always where I've dug from since I was a kid in writing songs. So you're definitely going to hear me, and the day that you start hearing something that doesn't sound like Alexandra Kay, it probably means I was trying to force something that
isn't real.
Just wasn't right. So I'm stoked.
And there's also like, because you were so vulnerable and you're willing to kind of go there with your music, I feel like that there still is that in even falling in love. Like you get really deep emotions when you fall in love for real. Like when you're really feeling all of those things, the safety, the things that Rocco's kind of giving you right now. It also can be a very, not dark, but it can like be very deep kind of song that like you could write about being in love, because those feelings and those emotions, for how much you experience emotion, can actually like still be something that feels really genuine, that will touch people. And maybe it's not people that, are feeling in love and they, maybe they're still dealing with grief or the divorce or a loss of someone. And you might be able to still touch them even with the storytelling that you do. And so I think that's so continue to do that, because if you, like you said, if you're trying to go in, and I joke a lot, as I use a lot of like the memes or things of like, oh, this is Maren Morris's new, like, this is her version of espresso. Like, it's like, this is this as like, she's writing something really upbeat and she's writing something that's super dancey. And like, are we trying to like recreate the things that are happening? And that really does happen. I mean, I mentioned Dagny earlier when she was telling me about the songwriting process. She told me that she's been in rooms where people have said, let's play this song and now let's go like basically rewrite it and write it very similar because it's such a good song. We want our version of it now. And
sure. And I have definitely gone into the room and been like, I want my own It's Your Love, right? Like, or something like that. But we don't play the song and be like, let's have it sound like this. Yeah. It's more just like, I want the opportunity to have this like extremely deep Tim and Faith moment where it's like, I don't know.
It's going to make you feel it, or you're going to want, but there's so many songs that are like that, and it's about what you put in the lyrics and the production of it that's going to like draw the emotion. I think when you say, okay, everyone wants happy music because I delivered my divorce album and now I want to deliver my in love album. And like Adele does, everyone said when Adele when she got married, everyone was like, oh, well, we're definitely not getting a good Adele record because like, she's happy. Like she can't go write good songs because she's happy. Like, and so
which isn't true. And also there's cuts. Like if somebody else writes it and it's great, I am not afraid to cut it. Yeah. So I'm actually getting a lot of cuts in for my record now. I just need to make sure that like I'm extremely, attached to a theme, right? So like what I really love is when people come to me and they say like, you made one of the best concept albums that I've heard in years. And that makes me so happy because I wanted it to be a concept album. Yeah. And I kept it all the way down to the track list. Yeah. Like I put it so that when you listen, you're listening to the whole story unfold the way that I lived it. And so I want to continue to do that with my next record, and I'm working with a new producer on it. And he, has been in rock music his whole life. And so like, it's definitely got a heavier where we're headed right now. And, there's a song on there called Nobody. That's a love song, but it's basically saying like, if it's not you, it's nobody. So like, I'd rather die. Basically, you know what I mean?
Oh, I love that.
So it's like, it's got that like dark, really playful-esque, but it's a love song. It's about loving somebody so much you can't live without them. So amazing. Yeah, I'm excited for everybody to hear it.
Yeah. Well, everyone, that was probably one of the most asked questions is, when is the new album? When are we getting it? So you're on the Jelly Roll tour, but tell us what can we expect next, and kind of what's the timeline that fans need to kind of be patient?
So I'm planning on releasing a song in November and then taking December off.
You need it.
And then releasing some more in January, February, and then starting to roll out my record. So it'll be out very soon, and you guys will get some teasers of the new music very soon. And, I hope you guys love it. And here's the thing, though, like I could say very soon and then not give it to you for another year. Because at the end of the day, I'm just not going to put out anything that I don't fully believe in, fully stamp. Yeah. That's how I felt with my first record. So it was done when it was done. And like that was it. And that's how it's going to be with this too. But there's definitely like a handful of songs that I'm going to start rolling out as singles that are really sick. And I think a couple of them are just going to be life-changing for me. So I can't wait.
Awesome. And are we going to hear those on the tour?
No. So I'm not going to be playing anything new on the Jelly Roll tour. I'm just going to be sticking to, all I've ever known in some previous tracks
cool.
to that, because I'm not rolling out the record yet. Yeah. So it's just not really fitting in our plan to do that. But the show is so sick. Like the visuals, and it's just, get there early. You are not going to want to miss it. Also, I'm going to be doing meet and greets at one of the merch stands every night after for like 30 minutes or so, whatever they let me before Warren comes on after.
Nice.
So I know a lot of fans have been asking about meet and greets. So if you're wondering, I'm going to go to one of the merch stands and see you guys there meet as many people as possible until Warren goes on every night.
Perfect. Well, that answered another set of big questions. All right.
I'm sure.
And before I let you go, there was one other question, and I have no idea what it means, but it was the most upvoted question that people asked. It was, what happened on the main stage at the beach on August 14th? I have no idea. So
Okay.
I'm like, you're either going to want to answer this or you're not.
As soon as you said the most up question, I'm like, oh, it's main stage on the beach. So I was playing a festival in Atlantic City. Of course, main stage on the beach, Atlantic City. It was a big day for me because it was my first main stage, and it was called Tidal Wave Festival. And it was my first main stage. It was just a huge look for me. It was a huge Live Nation festival, and it was just like a big day for me.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my ex and I were not getting along that day. Some things happened. And it ended up just being, kind of ruined, not kind of, very ruined, and just, a very long and telling night for how the rest of my life was going to go. And so, that was really how I made the decision that night to say, like, I'm sure you felt this before, like, when it's over, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something happens and you just go, I'll never look at you the same.
And you went out and performed with that in the back of your head.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
and then did a meet and greet afterwards.
Oh gosh.
And then got on a plane the next day and went to a vacation with my parents in which we had to pretend like everything was fine for a week.
Oh no. Oh.
And then I believe we separated after that.
That is
shortly after that.
That's horrible.
So that was August. And then he moved back, I believe, in August, September. Then, he was living, we were separated August, September, October. He came to my Opry debut in November because in that time we were going through couples therapy. And then we split in, it was like January 1st of last year. Yeah.
Do you look at like the August 14th date as the day that you knew it was over? Is that, because I'm curious, like, how do the fans know this date? Like, is this?
Oh, it's in Painted and Perfect.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's one of the
lyrics. So,
okay.
It says, I had to break it to my parents, and Daddy says we don't do divorces, right. But they got it once I told them some stories. Do you even remember August 14th, main stage on the beach, Atlantic City? I was singing, he was causing a scene. So that is how I kind of tell the story.
Yes.
Because I'm not going to like out what happened, right? Because listen, like people drink too much and they act a fool.
Yeah.
I've done it many of times.
Well, that lyric is pretty specific though. I mean, even hearing, I've heard it in the song obviously, but hearing you say it too, it's like, oh yeah, but I was never listening to the song and like being specific to a date and Atlantic City and things like that.
It was just a turning point.
Yeah.
It was a turning point in my life. I believe I was out on tour, and this was it was a lot of really crazy things had been happening. It was like boom, bop, 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 and it was getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then he came on the road with us, and he was driving for us at the van. Like I was paying him to drive.
Right.
So he was employed with me. That did not work well. And so it was like that whole week, and then leading up to, I think what happened is like so many things were happening during that week. And then by the time we got to Atlantic City, I think that like he felt it was over just as much as I did.
Yeah.
And that's probably why, it all happened and it got really crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody wants to know like specifics. And the thing is I'm just like not going to air him out like that. No. And I never would. No. And, like I said, people, what is it? It's like in the Zach Bryan song. It's like one of my favorite, but it's like strange words come from a grown man's mouth when his mind's broke. And I think about him every time because what a devastating feeling, right? To know that something that you've cherished and loved for so long is over and it's just not going to work, and you've tried and it's not happening.
Yeah.
So am I making excuses for his actions? No, but like
But you've, like I said, you've said it. There was a scene, and you both realized that day that it was over based on whatever.
And then we tried even longer for months.
Yeah.
For months. And then I got missed calls from 618 just checking in. Girl, are you okay? I saw him at the bar. Looks like he's moving on.
Right.
And that is also a true story. From my best friend called me because no one knew we were separated yet.
Wow.
And we were not divorced.
Gosh.
We were separated.
Oh, no.
And he was, trying to get a girl to go home with him.
Oh,
so,
well, there you go. And
she was like, I was like, in the hometown?
I know, right?
Like, everyone knows me. Are you serious? You know what I mean? I was like, but that's just the thing. It's like, when you're going through that much hurt and heartbreak, I've said a lot of stuff I don't mean.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of things I shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
Like, when you're going through that, sure, did I write it and put it in my songs? Yeah, but like, he's human and so am I.
Yeah.
And if he was a songwriter, he could air me out too. So like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I like to get really specific in the songs. And so the fans just want to.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Dig.
I thought it was something that just happened this August. So I wasn't putting it like, oh, they're asking about a lyric. And I was like, something must have happened. I was like, I haven't heard from Lewis. I don't know this thing that happened. And I'm like, what is going on? So I was like, all right, I'm going to ask
So
it.
that would be August 2022 then, 2 years ago.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, cool. Well, I know you've got to wrap because you are going on tour with Jelly Roll and you are very busy, but I am so glad that we got to do this and catch up. Before we go, where can folks find you and stay connected?
You guys can find me at Alexandra Kay Music on TikTok, on Facebook. Just make sure everything's got that blue verified check mark. That's me. _ Alexandra Kay on Twitter. I've got Snapchat, snap.aky. I'm all over the place. Like I said, Nick doesn't have one single social media stone unturned. That's so amazing. I am everywhere. But yeah, please follow me. Got a new record coming out, and I'm going to be vlogging throughout the entire Jelly Roll tour. So there's going to be lots of content going out.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again for doing this, everyone. Thank you for listening. Get out and see Jelly Roll because Alexandra Kay is truly one of, I said it earlier, she's like the it girl right now. Everybody wants a piece of her, but she is standing her ground and she is doing it. She's paving the way on her own, which is just so incredible to see. And the fact that more music is coming, it's not going to stop. So continue to watch her story, continue to tune in here at The Gist. And until our next episode, thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Bye.